What's a subtle sign that someone is very intelligent? Before we start with the first story, please hit subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. They're very good at problem solving. Even if it's something they have no experience with, they always approach the problem from the right angle. I'll add on to this by saying they know when they don't know. And because of that, we'll take the opportunity to learn so that they do know, rather than continuing to bump their way through a problem, which sometimes is the right angle to start with by learning what is what first. The know-it-all pretenders will just continue slamming that square peg into a round hole until it fits. Then the next time someone opens a control cabinet, it's a f***ing mess of bodges and sometimes even bypass safeties. Story 2. I'm definitely not a genius, but when I started living on my own, I was shocked at how many people lack even basic problem-solving skills. Google and YouTube are your friends. Use them. However, now it's becoming a bigger problem as people can't even figure what to search for or how to apply the knowledge gained. Also, they have a hard time weeding out any misinformation. In my line of work, it's security coding. I search the internet all day for answers to things. It's real easy when searching for the specific problem gives you the specific answer. It's a bit harder when searching gives you an answer to another problem that you can maybe apply to fix your issue. That's where the intelligence comes in. Story 3. They can adapt their communication style, vocabulary, tone, content, etc. to fit the situation and people they're talking to, and it seems completely natural. It's more than social aptitude, though. It requires a deep, nuanced understanding of the subject, as well as a strong enough handle on language to code switch while assessing perceived-based knowledge and interests of the listener. I teach PhDs how to write in plain language, and it's like 10% social aptitude and 90% hard-earned skill. It's rare for a person to be able to match syntax without significant practice, especially in writing. Story 4. Depends on what type of intelligence you mean. The smartest of the smarts from a book-smart perspective are typically socially awkward. Their brains operate differently, which is what allows them to think outside of the box and understand extremely complex topics, but because their brains don't operate in the same way as a normal person's does, they don't always pick up on social norms. Most of these people know that they are different and therefore are hyper-aware of how they differ from people, which can make them try too hard to appear normal in social situations, thus causing them to seem odd. Now, if you're talking about street smarts, they either have super dynamic personalities or they are the quiet ones in the room. I teach PhD. I personally find that the quiet ones, the people who listen and just take in information, are likely smarter than the dynamic people. But dynamic individuals usually have the ability to gain necessary insight quickly. Overall, I think there are so many types of intelligence that it's hard to pin down one sure sign of intelligence. Story 5. I consider someone intelligent if they're able to explain something incredibly complicated in simpler and more readily understood terms. Makes for a great teacher, too. Plenty of people think they can do this, but are misrepresenting concepts by oversimplifying them. But I did work with an MD and researcher who will forever stick out in my mind as the smartest person I've ever met. She could explain even the most complex relationships in the simplest and easiest to digest terms, without diluting or oversimplifying the concept. Story 6. My freshman college roommate was a mechanical engineer. One of the first nights we were in the dorms, we didn't eat at all, but the pizza box didn't fit inside the dorm fridge. He went all out origami and transformed the box into a smaller, perfectly square box that did fit inside the fridge in about 12 seconds. I'm pretty good at math, but not necessarily geometry. My mind was blown. I spent 35 years in academia between my student-teacher years, and he's still one of the 3 smartest people I've ever met. His ability to just do it is dumbfounding to me. His retirement project is transforming his father's 1963 Mercedes convertible into a hybrid that has a small diesel engine that runs on vegetable oil along with a totaled Tesla Model S battery pack. Story 7. Humility in their knowledge. And when I say that, I really mean 3 key things. First, a willingness to not be right. Second, a lack of judgment when someone else is wrong. And third, a willingness to sound dumb. You'll very often see people get something wrong, or something that isn't wrong, but other people think it is, or say something that sounds dumb and then get on by other people for being wrong, and then something like fight or flight kicks in, and they either double down or just leave. Social media is the worst for this cause. It's so easy to nitpick the smallest detail of something or invoke one of the scary logical fallacies on some rando. But the proper response when talking to someone should never be to put them down, and genuinely intelligent people are like this. Instead, they'll hand you the information you're missing so you can get to the right answer. Story 8. Someone who can understand someone's opposing view without having to agree with it or get angry over it. I've been amazed over the years that so many people take probing questions so that I may better understand their position as attacks, making the whole thing much more difficult than it needs to be. I've tried many different approaches, but I've failed to find one that works universally. I'm not seeking a fight, I seek to understand. If I ask more questions, it's because I'm yet to understand. Communication is a team activity, and I need your help is about as close as I've gotten to a disarmament. Story 9. I have met several off-the-charts intelligent people. One thing I noticed that they have in common was low self-esteem. They had an actual low self-esteem club at the science fiction club I belonged to. The guy who did a lot of the calculations that allowed the Voyager probes to make the grand tour of our solar system was a member of the club. All he could think about were what he didn't know or what he physically couldn't do. The common issue I observed from these bright folks was relentless school bullying. We lose so many of these geniuses to depression, suicide, self-medication, or just flat-out self-inflicted mediocrity. Society in the US does a job of nurturing intelligence. It makes me incredibly angry how many of these people's potential were wasted. I don't include myself in that club. My intelligence is dead average. Frank Zappa said it best when he said that intelligence is treated like a hideous deformity by American society. Story 10. How they respond to being wrong. Over time, I have learned that really intelligent people love being wrong and shown better ways to do things. Knowledge is like a stamp collection to them, so when they rationally explain something to someone and someone is able to break down their idea and prove on it, to them they just found a new best friend. If they do not respond with this, the search for knowledge is only about feeding the ego, not feeling dumb or needing to be viewed as an expert to make money. Highly intelligent people spend their lives searching for someone to make them feel dumb, or knowledge that makes them feel like an idiot for holding on to a belief for so long. This is a very rare trait of a highly intelligent people, and there is a difference in someone who looks intelligent to many, but is actually intelligent amongst strong minds. The latter is what I am describing. Story 11. I usually find that creativity, humor, and verbal acuity are good signs of intelligence. I generally see lack of empathy, low openness, and seeing the world in absolutes as signs of low intelligence also. I notice many socially inept people tend to consider themselves intelligent almost just because they're socially inept and/or not good at sports. It's as if their ego needs something to value themselves on, so they assume they must be smart. It's entirely possible that the other guy in your life who makes you insecure is taller, stronger, more charismatic, and smarter. Such is life. Lastly, people, especially tech people, will often conflate technical domain knowledge with intelligence, which is absolutely not always the case. Yes, there is a bare minimum intelligence required to be an engineer, etc. But being an awkward senior engineer doesn't mean you're just too smart for normies to understand, and lack of a specific domain knowledge has all to do with intelligence. Story 12. They understand that as you begin to learn more about a subject, you enter into this situation where you believe you know far more than you really do. You realize that you know so much more than those who know nothing about that subject, but not that everything you are learning probably has 100 types of nuance and requires deeper understanding. It's kind of related to the Dunning-Kruger effect. The less you know about a subject, the more you think you know, because you don't realize how much there is to know that you don't. It's how you can get people who spend a few minutes on YouTube or Google, spout a bit of lingo they just learned, and don't realize that there's a reason it takes 4 years just to get a bachelor's in most topics, and many more to become a specialist. It's infuriating to those who actually have put in the time of study and experience. So yeah, a person who can show that they have some knowledge of a topic, yet remain humble because they realize that there is always more to know. The more you learn about a topic, eventually you realize just how much more there is to know, and it's important to get through that initial arrogance. I fell into this myself when I was in my late teens. I became fairly well read on sustainable horticulture and botany in general. I got a job that was pretty advanced, and I was pretty good at it. Yet after a while, I realized that my boss, he was like a plant wizard. He could tell you what the weather was like at night a week ago by looking at the way the flowers were presented on the tomatoes we grew. I learned some amazing walked from him once I got over my ego. Story 13. Half of intelligence is critical or lateral thinking, and the other half is comprehension. You need to identify what you already know, determine what you need to know, and then how to get there. Identifying the path to knowledge requires you to be attentive and ask the important questions. There is a desired outcome. Whether or not you get there, you have intention, which focuses your efforts. With this in mind, I find a subtle sign someone is very intelligent is when they ask questions and either specify why they are asking or word the question in a way that shows intent. You can clearly tell where they are going with their questions, or if they happen to be asking irrelevant questions, you both figure it out much faster. It helps them get the information they want, but also helps the person answering understand their train of thought and focus their answers. Story 14. People who ask for others' opinions regularly from a neutral perspective, as if the idea or thought is not their own, more of an open-ended question. Often smart people are very confident internally, but seek the opinions of others because they are conscious and aware of their own biases and flaws. In that same fashion, they usually also have the emotional intelligence to set aside their ego or take a loss if it ultimately results in a better future result or an important lesson learned. They listen and observe more than they talk and choose their battles wisely. And it is why more often than not, they come out ahead in most challenging situations they might find themselves in. These types of people, you'd never know how smart they are from their docile nature until someone ignorant, rude, or insulting challenges them on their competency. Then it's an intellectual slaughter. Story 15. I don't even know how to define intelligence anymore. I'm pretty good at math. My wife has to use her fingers to add 5 plus 3. However, my wife can walk into a random kitchen, find a few random ingredients that seemingly wouldn't go together, and whip up an amazing dinner without using a recipe. I can't do that. I can cook, but I need to use a recipe or work from a small list of ingredients I'm comfortable with. I can't do what she does. She can't do what I do. How do I determine who is more intelligent? I can play the piano a little bit. I'm not great at it. I can sit at the keys and, using sheet music and lots of practice, work my way through a relatively simple piece. Others can just sit at a piano and just play music. Let's take Dave Grohl, for example. I guarantee that I got higher standardized test scores than he did. I definitely did better in school. I have an advanced degree. I don't think Dave Grohl finished high school. But Dave Grohl taught himself a bunch of instruments, and without even being able to read music, was able to be the front man of one of the biggest rock groups of all time. He's also written a best-selling autobiography, and is it well written. Does my degree make me smarter than Dave Grohl? I doubt it. I think most people have their own strengths and weaknesses. When they are doing something that aligns with their strengths, they seem pretty freaking smart. When they do things that showcase their weaknesses, they can seem pretty freaking stupid. Alright folks, that's a wrap. If you like this, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your thoughts in the comment below.